morning musical pieces for all the Animal Crossing games have always exuded a tranquility that is seemingly perfect for the atmosphere of a quiet town. Often, especially in New Leaf, the piano or some sort of keyboard becomes the focus instrument. Since the piano is a fantastic solo instrument, this is the perfect choice for nighttime scenes. Today we'll be looking at two of the morning pieces, 1 AM and 9 AM. Both are examples of the key word we've been learning about in the Animal Crossing soundtrack, simplicity. Don't be surprised to hear only one instrument at a time. Let us first analyze 1 AM, the softer, quieter piece you are hearing now. 1 AM is split into only two distinct sections. You might expect the composer to fill in these two sections with a variety of techniques and little filler instruments, but the opposite is true. There's a lot of repetition and a total of only 4 instruments. This song's tempo is set at a crawling 67 beats per minute, and the only real compositional technique employed here is this volume crescendo and decrescendo in the brass synth. I always found the combination of piano and electric keyboard, in this case the Rhodes, to be an amazing duo. The piano is more human and raw sounding, while the Rhodes is more delicate and ambient. The two almost seem to take on a reverse of roles in terms of which is on the low end and which is on the high end. The piano is much more bassier than usual, while the Rhodes adds a light touch to its notes. The two other instruments, the shaker and the brass synth, are a great way to transition the listener to the second section. Here in section 1, the Rhodes leads us into the piece, followed by the piano. What's intriguing here is that the piano doesn't actually come in at first, which actually caught me off guard. The first beat doesn't actually begin until the piano's first note. As you can see from the patterns, the Rhodes sort of acts like a vocal melody with the piano providing accompaniment. The chords for the piano are intriguing as well, and completely non-standard. It moves between these 3 chords, an F sharp sus2, to a B, to an E major 13th. The first 2 chords it uses 3-note arpeggios, but then it changes for the final chord by including these 2 notes, as a way of adding mystery to the piece. The overall movement of the piano seems to start with tension in the lower F sharp, and then it resolves going up to the B, and then it throws in a kind of mystique chord in the E major 13th. After a few more repetitions of this, the pattern is ever so slightly altered in this final chord in the first section, by instead choosing to go to the C sharp. In section 2, the Rhodes is now replaced by the shaker, and eventually the brass synth, which will gradually come into the piece. You'll notice that the piano is now 2 octaves higher, but still playing those same chords. As I said before, the shaker makes the song feel like it's treading new territory. Speaking on the shaker, the 2 samples, it shifts between a pan to the left and right respectively, and this is a subtle way to bring more space in the mix. The final instrument is the brass synth, which will gradually come in with this automation. As it fades in and out, the listener gets to experience a kind of new sensation, as if a gentle breeze is passing through. Now, as we get to listen to the song in full, pay attention to the harsher notes in the piano that are contrasted by the occasional lighter notes. Note the panning displayed in the shaker, and just imagine yourself standing out in the night sky just outside the city. 9 a.m. is quite a springy tune compared to our previous song. The way it uses its instruments is different as well. Here, each instrument seems to play sequentially after the other. And this is a terrific way to give the ear something new to listen to each time you play the song. 9 a.m. is light on the reverb as well compared to 1 a.m. Since daytime is approaching, this gives the feeling of the sun just rising over the horizon and the work of the town about to begin. Again, you'll hear the piano as the lead instrument in much of the song. Two other guitars join in the mix, one a baritone guitar, which gives a more grounded quality, and an acoustic guitar. Very light percussion is utilized here, with a tom, woodblocks, metal hit, and some congas at the end. We also see the reintroduction of the brass synth, which is featured more prominently in the song. And lastly, the mallet is another one of the filler instruments. In section 1, the piano begins immediately playing the New Leaf theme song. The theme itself is quite well composed, but this version is quite a bit more staccato than the usual. Notice how the first note jumps up an octave. Many famous melodies have begun this way, but this grace note, the G, is a great addition to add some flair to it. One of the marks of great melody writing is to vary up the rhythmic pattern. As you can see from the length of the notes and their articulation, it's widely different from each other. Some are staccato like these, while some are shorter notes, while some are longer. And at the end here, it also includes another hallmark of melodies, repetition, where it repeats this beginning motif with a slight variance by going to the G sharp instead. Now in the next pattern, the whole theme is doubled by an octave up. And it then ends on this octave descending run here. The baritone guitar is the secondary instrument in the piece, even though it basically plays the same notes and chords throughout the song. The guitar's role here is to use a technique known as highlighting. This is where one instrument, in this case the piano, is punctuated by another instrument, the guitar, usually in the same rhythmic pattern. The baritone guitar does sometimes solo by itself when these extra filler instruments come in. Now right before section 2 you can see some automation work done here for the baritone guitar. The first is panning, where it moves from the right speaker down to the left and then jumps back up to the right. The second is phase, where it steadily increases in this chord. And the last is volume, where its final increase is on this last note here. Now the other guitar, the acoustic, is more subtly used, only during specific sections in the song. And it plays fifth interval harmonies. Percussion is quite interesting. Right after you hear the piano and its first motif, the drums bring some life into the piece by first turning on this ethnic sounding drum, and then followed by two woodblock hits. You'll hear this phrase many times during the piece. Now the last two instruments, the brass synth and the mallet, only serve as filler instruments to literally fill in the space that the two instruments leave behind. The brass synth again uses only fifth intervals, going down by an octave here, and the mallet will ascend first the C sharp major scale, and then later it will descend down the C sharp major. So let's see all those things in play in this first section. This section is marked off by the metal hits at the beginning, and then with the familiar drum pattern and the baritone guitar continuing from the previous section. What's new here is these additional congas or bongos included. These congas are actually slightly offbeat, as you can see here. One final mention is that in this final part in the second section, you can see the automation again in this final chord. And it's very similar to the last one, where the panning shifts from right to left, phase is increased, and the volume is increased as well. As we play through the song, seek to understand why certain instruments are placed where they are. Are they used to fill in the space, or they're harmonized with another instrument? In our delightful look at the Animal Crossing series, we looked at a variety of different styles and compositional techniques. From the use of sound effects to induce a mood in rainy day, from the intriguing use of synthesizers to replicate a human voice in KK Bossa, to the vertical integration of City Folks Museum, and finally to the most recent combination of two perfectly suited atmospheric songs of 1 and 9 AM. The key lesson we learned in all of these Animal Crossing songs is simplicity. The choice of the instruments themselves was actually more important than the composition itself. In games like Animal Crossing, a memorable melody on an interesting instrument is perhaps the prime factor of what makes these songs special. Thank you for watching this 4-part series analysis on Animal Crossing. I thoroughly enjoy putting together these videos, and I hope I can show you the tips and tricks the great composers of the past have put into their songs. Thanks again, and have a beautiful day.